Hello and welcome everybody. Hopefully we're not frozen here. It looked like it froze for a second. Hopefully you guys can hear me. Let me know in the chat if you can. And I am going to open that up right now. But while I'm doing that, I'll talk a little bit about what I am going to be doing tonight. So, or actually before we get into that, I wanted to show off this character here. 1 second while I make sure I open up that chat to say hello. My the chat app that I have has been a little crazy lately. I can try using it, but it's been pretty hit or miss as of late. I think I'm just gonna try the tried and true browser version, because I know that for sure works. But the character that you're looking at is from my Appeal Academy course, which just reopened for registration, which I'll show here in just a second. There we go. All right, cool. So if you guys want to check that out, it's just at appeal.academy. I have kind of revised the course a little bit. I did one session of this earlier in the year, back in May. It was around the end of April, early May. So I've done one session of this course, and there is another one. There's some more info on the page, of course. Again, that is appeal.academy if you guys want to check it out and learn more. And then, of course, if you just Google Follygon or type Follygon into YouTube, you'll find all the rest of my stuff, like my YouTube channel and such. But cool. Other than that, yeah, I just wanted to show off the character, the gal, and I'll be showing off some of my students' work here in the future a little bit more. A couple of them have already posted over on ArtStation, and out of everybody that's posted, I'm very proud to say that all of them have made it on the front page, which is super exciting, super great. But yeah, I think she turned out real cool. Got more characters in the works as well. But this is not what we're gonna be working on tonight. So I will either hide her or just maybe ploop her up in the corner for now, and grab this little wretched thing, whatever the heck this monstrosity is. So I've been wanting to play around with the Sculptress Pro tool for a little bit, and this is kind of my excuse to do so tonight. So we're kind of noodling, kind of playing around. I had a concept loaded in by, what was his name? Alexander Chateauhin. Let me see if I still have it here. Yes. So I was kind of using this as just like a quick guide to like get an idea of what I wanted to do. So I started this at 5:30 my time, so about 30 minutes on this so far. Like I said, just kind of quickly playing around with Sculptress Pro, because it's not something that I use very often. And I want to play with it more. I want to try to see if I can weasel it into my workflow. So we're probably not going to be using this concept too much more. We might turn it on from time to time to take a peek. But yeah, I think we're just kind of going to play around, try to create some cool shapes here, and maybe talk a little bit about some fundamentals or answer any questions along the way, whatever they may be about. But let's go ahead and continue in here. I would actually like to break symmetry on this pretty soon, and kind of go from there. I don't want to stay in symmetry too long here. More so, as you can see, let me take off the hair really quick there. So we have two separate meshes for the head. We just have the top part and that lower jaw. I really liked the idea of that sunken jaw. That was kind of the main thing that I stole from this idea, this concept here. And I wanted to play around with that. Kind of like, it's like a skull with flesh on it, pretty much. It's really cool. So we're going to keep playing with that. And like I said, maybe answer some questions along the way. So let's see what else we can do here. I say just go ahead and break symmetry really quick though, if I can. I wanted to try just putting like a little pupil on this eye so I can get an idea of which way it was looking there with my concept. And that's probably fine. That's good enough, I think. We just need a basic idea so I can figure out placement a little better. Let me see there. We'll turn off perspective. That actually looks pretty good in terms of height. I might sink those in a little bit more, or shrink my eyeball even a little bit more. But for now, just kind of put that there. So I like to do that with my eyes just to kind of get, like I said, an idea of which way they are facing, and it really helps for me when working on stuff like my eyelids to figure out exactly where I want those certain hits to take place. So for instance, I typically want that top lid to, you know, cover up, you know, a little bit of the pupil or iris. But in this case, I think we're going for like a little more gaunt, a little more creepy, so we'll play around with that idea a little bit more. Maybe not go with some like super seductive eyes for our zombie face here. But let's go ahead and break symmetry on all these different parts and pieces here and start going crazy. Sculptress Pro is an awesome tool in the fact that it just kind of gives you freedom to really sculpt at any resolution that you want. You don't have to, like, for instance, for those that don't know what Sculptress Pro is, let's just turn on our polyframe mode and turn off fill. There we go. So you can see that there are different levels of resolution here with my geometry. And I can essentially turn on Sculptress Pro mode up here and start using the smooth brush. And as you can see, that starts to kind of tessellate the geometry there, lowering the resolution. Well, that not only works with your smooth brush, it works with all your brushes. So if I have a really big clay brush, you know, I can sculpt on that, get some new form. And if I zoom in and make my brush much smaller, you can see how much more dense the geometry is there. So depending on the size of your brush, you can get more or less resolution. And then you can control the kind of factor of tessellation and redistribution of polygons a little bit more with each individual brush. Which is really cool. Or you can just kind of play around with the global settings. Really, it's up to you. But yes, that is kind of a quick little overview of what Sculptress Pro is. But now we are going to start breaking symmetry. Jose, what's going on? Welcome. This is, I think, what I'm going to use as a basic idea here to kind of break symmetry a little bit more. So let's like pull down on one eye, and I'm going to do this really rough and quick here, because we are going to have to resculpt a lot of stuff, I'm thinking. And I would actually like, if we could, I think it would be cool to even get some like asymmetry in the skull here. And kind of like, you know, there's so much broken stuff going on in here. What else can we break and play around with? I don't want her to look like surprised or anything though, so we definitely want to avoid that with the raised eyebrow. Typically, one raised eyebrow immediately makes a character look, you know, quizzical or surprised, questioning, whatever you want to say. But yeah, let's continue on here. I actually want to grab. Oh, you know what? No, I don't. So the move brush, I don't know if it can work with Sculptress Pro, but at least by default it is off. Presumably for the reason that I just showed you there. If you use a really big move brush, you'd end up tessellating and destroying a lot of your geometry. So let's just go through here and make some big symmetrical pools, and maybe, or asymmetrical pools, and maybe we can change the feeling of this. I kind of like the grotesque, creepy feeling of the character, but maybe we want to take it a silly route. I don't know. Like I said, I'm more so wanting to play around with the tool, less around with the character. But you know what? We're here, so we might as well. And welcome everybody else that is just joining us. If you missed my little spiel at the beginning, welcome to the Pixelogic channel. If it's your first time here, a lot of different people stream on the channel. I'm one of many. My name is Ben, or Follygon. You guys can find my stuff online with a quick Google. Or if you guys want to check out my new course, it's available at the URL at the top of the screen, which is just appeal.academy. And that is a course that I've been working on for a while. And actually this character up here in the top is where I created that character. I created it for that course. Alright, we're just kind of playing around with some different gross shapes here. Let's just start cutting in here. I did a decent chunk of kind of blocking out here in the beginning because I didn't want to waste a ton of time in this, but I kind of like this feeling. It's feeling pretty cool. Let's try to play around, bring in some more of that through here. And maybe try to split that shape up a little bit more. There's definitely some weird shapes going on here in the chin, and I kind of like it. It doesn't make too much sense anatomically, but maybe we can just kind of get some lines going and see what kind of shapes we can create. Could also get some teeth in here. I don't know if we'll do a pipe, although that is a pretty simple shape. Another thing that I wanted to talk about tonight, depending on how much time we spend on this gal, and maybe we can do it simultaneously, I wanted to talk about some fundamental stuff, because it's not something that I get to talk about too often, and I thought that that would be fun. Fun change of pace. Alright, I am trying to just get a little bit more of a hit out here, and then I'm going to take my trim brush and flatten that. I'm just trying to turn that surface a little bit more. And maybe we can start to get some color on here as well. Actually, I really want to do that because Sculptress Pro actually works with PolyPaint, which is pretty crazy. It's pretty cool that that changes based on your paint resolution as well. Alright, I'm just getting a couple extra lines in here so I can maybe start getting some secondary forms up here in the forehead and start playing around with some other shapes. Mainly just using a clay brush, and I was just using the damn standard to carve in there. I think I want to really break sim here a little bit more. So let's start getting some melty face going on over here. Good old melty face, that's the technical term. And let's see. Breaking symmetry is always a scary thing, I think, when you're working on a character. Luckily, this isn't anything, you know, too serious, kind of just a quick doodle. But it's always a scary moment when you're about to break symmetry. I find that it's best, you know, if you know what you're doing and you're confident, it's best to just dive into it and try to get past that stage as quick as possible. A lot of characters, especially on something like this, they won't start feeling like the character until you start to break symmetry. Not that we're going for accuracy here, but specifically like with the different major shape changes between the eyebrow, the brow raise up here and the flat side on the other. That's not something that you're going to be able to capture the feeling of in a symmetrical character. So it definitely helps to break that. I am liking that Sculptress Pro. It's weird. So I'm a Dynamesh person. I use Dynamesh a lot. I actually jump between Dynamesh and ZBrush topology very often and very quickly, and that's just kind of my workflow. But what I really like about Sculptress Pro is just how fast it is. I don't have to waste time worrying about geometry getting super stretched, although sometimes it's kind of good to have that happen, especially if you're like noodling on a concept or something like that, especially in the early stages. Some of that can result in some happy accidents. But I do like how fast this tool is. It's pretty sweet. Alright, we'll turn our hair back on. Maybe play with that a little bit more. Maybe try to get some color in here as well. Let's do that next. We'll just sample this. And let's see here. I think I should still have my skin material. If not, there we go. Can maybe play with this a little. we'll get something a little bit brighter up here. So I'm very curious to see how much this paint here. Yeah, I had a feeling that that would happen. So I think it's going to be best to turn off Sculptress Pro when working on doing some PolyPaint. I think you're going to be a lot better off for it, just because if we turn that back on, you can see how it's kind of destroying my sculpt there. It's just lowering my resolution down to what it needs based on my brush size. So that's a little unfortunate, but it's a quick little toggle here to get that off and kind of go from there. So I am, at least initially here, just going to drop some quick blockout paint on this face. And let's see, let's maybe try different material here. There we go. We'll stick with this for now. So when I am in the early stages of doing some quick poly paint, I just like to work fast, get some big blockout colors, much like when you are sculpting. Try to get some of those quick colors on there where they should be. And we're not really worried about accuracy here. It's more about just kind of getting something on the character, and then from there we can start to kind of define it a little bit more. Early stage though, just kind of get something on the model and go. And we can maybe grab a couple more colors here from this concept real fast. A couple of these dark colors. Get some of that dark red around the mouth. The underside of the cheek there. So very muddy, right? But that's kind of what we want here in the beginning. Alright, let's grab our lower jaw and continue the process. Whoops. So another thing that's really important when you are poly painting is that you lower your RGB intensity down really low. Let's see, is there any color that I want down here? I think we pretty much got everything we need. And then after you have kind of a base of all these colors on our character, we can just use the C key and that'll sample any color in our scene. And we can continue sculpting like that. I'm about to merge this jaw back into the head of our character as well. So we'll do that here in just a moment. Maolako says, when do you recommend using Dynamesh and when do you recommend subdividing? Well, luckily, I made a video on that just a month ago. So here. So I don't go about repeating myself. I will just share a link to that in chat for you, and I'll get rid of the timestamp there. Hopefully that works. Let me know, and yeah. There's a lot of different instances. I don't think there's, you know, a really general case for when you should or when you shouldn't. I find that it's best to just have a really good understanding of the tools and kind of go from there. But hopefully that video helps you out. Let me know, and good luck to you. I love ZRemesher and I love Dynamesh. It's just kind of a matter of having a good understanding of what each one is best at producing. So there's a lot there. There's a lot there and a lot of experimentation. But like I said, hopefully the video helps you out. Let's get some of those teeth in there because she had some like gnarly toofs. So let's get some of those. Literally just a cube is probably the best way to start that. Let's see, where'd our cube go? Grab our little cube tooth. And we'll just squash this. And voila. We have a tooth. One tooth. And we'll just kind of get this into place. Let's grab that gnarly rancid yellow color. Rock teeth. That's why she only has 3 of them, I guess. Very cool character. I would love to do a more accurate representation of this concept when I have time. It was actually my original intention, but I figured that this would it'll be cool to play around with Sculptress Pro in just a couple hours tonight. So that's what we'll do, at least for now. Raga, what's up? Welcome. Welcome. How are you doing? Oh, you know what? On this, I might be able to PolyPaint with Sculptress Pro and see what happens. It's not exactly the result that I wanted. So we'll pause on Sculptress Pro for a moment. We'll just get a couple of these teeth in there first. All right, just put those there and there. Need to make it a little bit smaller. That's something. All right, and then we'll just duplicate this a couple more times and be on our way. Let's see. And one more here. Let's put this one. Whoops. So as long as you don't have subdivision levels on a piece of geometry, you can hold the control key with move selected, and it will duplicate it. So that's what happened there. Confused me a little bit for a moment. All right. So we got a couple quick boxes in place, but that is how everything starts. Start with the most basic shape. So as I mentioned, I wanted to talk a little bit about fundamentals tonight because it's not, you know, something that I get to talk about too often while streaming. So I guess in terms of fundamentals, I guess we would be talking about just primary shapes, basic shapes. So like think of like my water bottle here. For my water bottle, the most basic shape of this water bottle would just be a cylinder. So start with that and start to add more form from there. Same thing with a tooth, the most basic shape, just being a cube, maybe an elongated cube, rectangle of sorts, and go from there. Doom, what's up? Nice beards. Well, thank you. Appreciate it. It's been a while. It has. My last stream on the channel here was 2 weeks ago, and I'm not sure if you were around for that one or not. But yes, our crotchety old zombie lady, whatever she is, she's coming along. We'll do maybe something a little bit brighter for the hair. Let's see. I'm just sampling a couple colors. Maybe like a dull gray, and then we can get some more colors in there in just a moment. Here, let's organize our subtool list a little bit. Typically when I'm sculpting, I don't really worry about folders or anything. I just kind of go as quick as I can and take care of the rest later. I'm gonna apply a reflective material to my eyes just because it makes a little bit more sense. And some of my materials are messed up, but that's okay. Let's continue on here with this goobery mouth full of gnarly, nasty teeth. All right, let's see here. Grab our different colors, and I think I'm gonna kind of polypaint a gradient on that, kind of like what I'm seeing in this this image. So we'll try something like that. So let's get a little bit more room for these teeth though, because we're starting to get a little bit too crazy in our form down here. Starting to get a little sloppy. That's okay. It's good to experiment. And like I said, Sculptress Pro, you know, I definitely get a lot more control out of some like ZBrush mesh topology just because less polys. It's easier to work with pretty much all the time. That's like a good rule of thumb to go by. Here, that would definitely be the case with these teeth. Ooh, there we go. These things look so stupid, but I love it. All right. Just kind of move that out. We'll add some like little bits of asym to them and just a couple quick subdivisions. So they kind of round out a little bit too. So that's not like a very specific way to go about things for this. If I was, trying to hit a very specific shape, I would be a lot more intentional with my topology there. But with something like this, we're just kind of moving quick and playing around with Sculptress Pro, so it's not a huge deal. Grody. All right, let's get some of that gradient on that tooth. Shouldn't be too hard. Just gonna take a big old paintbrush really fast. Kind of look like candy corn. Yum. Or gross. I don't know. I feel like I can eat maybe like 1 or 2 candy corn before I remember that candy corn is not that good. When you select different subtools, the unselected one darkens. Is there a way to turn that off? Yes, there is. What you are experiencing, though, is something that I find helpful. So what you have going on is, if I turn off all my PolyPaint and just have on my Follygon clay material, and I just like click around, it's showing what is the active subtool. So that can be really handy for a lot of reasons, but I believe that you can turn that off somewhere in your preferences. Off the top of my head, I don't know, but I bet with a quick look at the documentation you could find it. Another way that you could do it is, I am assuming that you don't have any PolyPaint or materials applied to your sculpt, because that is the only reason that that would be happening. So what you can do is just go through all your subtools and click on MRGB and click on Fill Object, and then you can just run down your list with your arrow keys if you want. A little bit easier to maybe do it that way, and just set everything to whatever that color is. I'm not going to do that because I want the PolyPaint that I have on all these. So if you want to maybe PolyPaint your character later on, that effect will go away as well. Let's go through here, make sure that my material is applied to everything except my eyes. Awesome. Let's continue on. So we got our little chiclet teeth in there. Let me check, make sure I didn't miss anything over here in chat really quick. Awesome. Okay, so let's get a little bit more paint on some of the parts of the jaw down here. A little bit too light, and I want to combine the lower and upper jaw. And there are a couple ways we can go about that. You know what? Actually, I'm just gonna leave it because I can just hide what little tiny seam I have with my hair, with my super crazy messed up hair that I have, which is actually easier to use the snake hook brush with because that actually utilizes Sculptress Pro. I'm gonna play with that hair to feel just a little bit better. I want the hair to wrap up and around the ear. A lot of the time I'll just fake this and like push in the geometry around that area, but this works pretty well too. Actually doing the work. Alright. So what do we want to do with this hair? We're probably just going to keep the hair a little bit gross and not, sculpt individual strands or anything like that. So in terms of hairstyle, I kind of like how this has like this really cool taper flow where it starts like with this big wave and then kind of like tapers down towards the bottom. I think that's pretty sweet. And then the other side, it's more of just one big curve. So we can kind of get that like nice big shape and then maybe make that a bit more visually interesting from that side. And over here we can probably do something pretty similar. Let's see. And what I like to do with geometry like this, these are separate pieces of geometry. I'm actually going to Z-remesh this as low as I can at first, just to get something a little bit more clean and easy to work with. I don't necessarily have to use Sculptress Pro on everything, but I've made the entire face here using Sculptress Pro. So we'll give that a second to calculate. And let me sample that color. Awesome. Alright. So a little bit more clean for sure in terms of form. But we lost some of our volume just a little bit. We can get that back really fast. So when I'm working on stylized characters that have really clean shapes, I am often using Z-remesher in an attempt to get some low poly stuff that's a lot easier to manipulate, a lot more clean, where I am using tools like the Z modeler brush to poly model stuff, like over on this character. But in terms of a quick old hag, she's shaping up pretty quickly. I think the PolyPaint was a good idea. How much time takes to export a time lapse? It's the first time that I record my sculpt using ZBrush, and it's taking too long. Well, I guess it depends on how you are recording and exporting. So one way that I like to use in ZBrush is my undo history. So while I am sculpting, I will turn on the undo history under File, and then I can have that while I continue to sculpt on my character. So for instance, I can run all the way back here. Hopefully we don't get a crash, but we'll give that a second to think, and then we should be able to run through pretty smooth. But then what you do after you have your undo history, whoa, I did it for a minute. Maybe, oh, there we go, okay. So maybe Sculptress Pro is a little bit slower for going through your undos. So now it should go pretty smoothly. So I have all my undos for this. I'll just kind of show you the process from a sphere all the way up. Yeah, the Sculptress stuff does get a little bit more slow, but that's honestly to be expected. And then to the paint, to where we are now. So what you can do is up in your movie menu, you can click on F history, and that will go through your undo history and go through all that. I have a bunch of different settings that I like to use with the modifiers. You of course want to turn off the title image and the overlay image. Those are just two quick sliders. It takes 5 seconds to get rid of those. Then you won't have any logos or anything on your time lapse unless you want to add in a custom one for yourself. But there are a bunch of different settings in here. I would play around with them, but pretty much you always want to do a large document and set up your document size before you record a movie. And then, like I said, there's a bunch of different settings in here. It depends on how long your undo history is or how long your sculpt history is going to be. That will define how long the movie is, but if you have like, what do I have on the face right now? I have 1,000 undos on the face, so I don't know. I wouldn't expect that to take longer than like 5 minutes. If it took, I'd be okay if it took 10 minutes, but if it took longer than that, I would be like, maybe a little wary. Probably cancel it. Just kind of depends though. It's a lot of different options with those movie settings, like I said. If you have like a really high frame rate or a really large document size, that could increase that time by quite a bit. So those are the two things that I would check on first. Alright, so we got our hair in our basic, very basic shape. I wanted to add in some PolyPaint here. It's like these darker areas, just some like quick different variation in here just to make it a bit more visually interesting. And we're doing pretty good on time, so I think we'll have enough time for a quick demonstration here at the end too. And just a couple different quick colors. Spice it up a little. And if we want to get some texture back in the hair, that's fine, but I say we play around with our face a little bit more and start to push what we have now. So I like using, and we're going to keep using Sculptress Pro for sure, because I want to use that pretty much the entire time. And I'm going to use a clay brush to start getting some interesting secondary forms here with my volumes. So probably end up, a lot of the time my objective is to not have any brush strokes in my sculpt, but I'm kind of aiming a little bit for the opposite here. So I am intentionally going to use my brush to try to get some extra texture on this face. In some areas it can get overdone really quick and look very repetitive, so you gotta be careful with that. Maybe switch it up. But as a good starting point, clay brush is a good way to go. So some of this feels pretty repetitive, so we could start to break that up with something like a damn standard brush. You can even use like some trim brushes to start getting in there and planing out some of the form, but I'm just going to continue going crazy here, building up and plussing up these shapes. Try to get some more volume in here, because that's kind of feels pretty flat right now. So I think we can do some cool stuff here. But we got to be careful not to get too inflated, because then it starts to feel kind of just tacked on and really awkward. But a little bit, especially asymmetrically, is pretty cool, I think. So Sculptress Pro tends to get a little laggy the higher you get in your subdivision level, and I find that lazy mouse tends to make it lag a little bit more, but I really like the settings that I have on this brush, so I'm going to continue using it even though it's a little laggy. This is one of the main areas that I want to plus up the volume. Ooh, getting a pretty cool shape in there. Keep that. But it's just starting to add a lot more texture, a lot more depth to the face, especially around here in the mouth. I think we're starting to get some cool stuff. Ooh, whoa, that is a lot less leggy down here. See how much faster that is? Just because the poly count is that much lower. So huge, 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 huge difference there. I like that. Absolutely, Drake. Happy to help, man. Let's see. The bag says I can't hide or unhide polygroups with Control, Shift, and click on different parts. What is the problem? It's a little tough to tell based on just the explanation there. Can't hide or unhide polygroups with Control, Shift, and click on different parts. So, off the top of my head, I'm going to guess that you have a different selection brush selected. So hold Control and Shift, and then up here, choose Select Rectangle. Make sure that Select Rectangle is chosen, and then Control Shift click on your poly groups. So try that. The thing is, with stuff like the Select Lasso, it will try to select things like edge loops. So like you can see there on a click, it's not really doing anything. Just because it's trying to select an edge loop, but there are none on this because it's all Sculptress Pro topology. So try that first, and see if that works. My drawing says nice Android. Well, thank you. Appreciate it. She was made for my new course, which is the Appeal Academy. Appeal.academy is the URL if anybody's interested in checking out more on that. I think I have it pulled up somewhere here. There you go. Pull it down. Or you know what? There's a URL at the top of the screen as well. Appeal.academy. This is the character that I made for that course. I have also done Android 17, and I think I have my ArtStation pulled up. Yes. So I've done Android 17 as well, so I thought it was appropriate to do 18. I probably won't do any more of the Androids, but they were both based off of this concept by Adithep Imithe, aka Gobgap, who is an amazing, amazing artist. You guys should definitely check him out if you have not. And tonight we are just doing some doodling with Sculptress Pro, and I'm having a lot of fun. I've been liking this tool a lot more than what I originally did when it first came out. When I first saw it, I wasn't super convinced, but lately it's kind of gotten under my skin, and I've realized how great it actually can be. So if you have not played around with the Sculptress Pro tool, definitely give it a shot. It's very cool. And keep adding a few more additional shapes around here in the lips. Maybe close up some of these shapes here a little bit better. Just using move back face masking real quick. Kind of like the segmented, well, I don't know what that word was, segmented feeling that we're getting here. There's some cool stuff going on there. We can maybe play around with some asim down here a little bit more too. Kind of like a pumpkin mouth or something. All right, let's get some more stuff going on down here. Let's see, we can't really see too much of what's going on over there. She's just got a nice, strong bacon neck, our favorite kind of neck. Could probably get a little bit more definition over here. Let me turn off the hair for a moment. I don't want to go too crazy. She doesn't want to have a super jacked neck or anything like that. Like over here, a little too much. Baback sounds like the selection tool was the problem. So awesome. Glad to help you out. Yeah, that, I wish the select lasso, I'm glad that functionality is there. I wish I could just toggle it off. That would be very nice. But, it's not like it's super hard to change your brush and, keep going, so not a big deal. Glad you got it worked out, though. Alright, so that's typically the shape that I'm looking for in my character's necks right through here. But I think it's still just too strong. So we're going to soften it on both sides and push that in. The next thing we're going to do is try to really, I think, break sim on the expression just a bit more. I'm noticing some weird stuff going on here, though. Ooh, no. There we go. It's kind of lacking nostrils. One tool that I really like using is Transpose Master, which is under... Oh, come on. There we go. Which is up in your Z plugin menu under Transpose Master. T-Pose Mesh is the button that you want to be clicking. Oh, I might have too many polys for this, but that is okay. Essentially what I want to do is just grab my really big move brush, really start to kind of warp this shape a little bit more. Just make this a little bit more broken up. And I know I'm warping my eyeballs as well, but I'll show you a little trick that I like to do. We'll T-pose sub T to go back. So I've actually warped my eyeballs, but so the shape is kind of oblong now, but we can just undo that and then reposition them if we need to. It looks like we might not need to. Oh, this one, maybe a little bit. Oh, that was weird. What's going on? Oh, okay. So the RGB intensity slider actually uses, masking is controlled by the RGB intensity slider. That always confuses me when it happens. It's not something that I use very often. So when it does happen, I'm like, what is going on? So if your masking is being a little bit weird, like not as strong as you would expect it to be, try playing around with that, setting it back on 100. That's where we want it to be. I also like the eye paint over here. This is really cool. Let's see if we can maybe incorporate that really quick. Let's see. Oh God. Not exactly what I wanted. Alright. So we want this kind of pinkish color. And then there's like this weird off-white milky thing going on, and then like that darker kind of bluish color. I want more of that milky kind of white here. Yeah, that's kind of cool. Kind of like that feeling. I still wanted some of like that pupil iris shape to kind of be seen there, so maybe we can get some of that back in. Yeah, there we go. Something like that. That's kind of creepy, kind of cool. I like it. I like the lighter tone over here. Get those a little bit closer to each other. That feels much better. Let's see. We'll swap our material back here. Could these potentially be rigged and animated? Why did I say animated like that? Wrong intonation. Yes, absolutely. This character would just have to be retopoed so that it could, because right now the topology, I'm using the Sculptress Pro tool, which is something that I wanted to play around with, which dynamically tessellates your model. I think they call it tessimation. Because it tessellates and decimates your model. These are all ZBrush terms. But it dynamically changes your poly count. So you would have to manually retopo this before you would go about animating anything like this. But absolutely, yes. Yes, it's all just polygons right now. So you just need that. What's the secret to make my characters more appealing? Well, Mr. Sanson, I'm glad you asked. I've shown off this character a couple times. She's just hanging in the corner right now, but this is from my course, the Appeal Academy, which is just appeal.academy. There should be a URL at the top of the screen where you can sign up for the course. It's not just an online course, it's also a personal mentorship program. So if that sounds like something that you are interested in, learning about how to make your characters more appealing, or just learning about sculpting some appealing characters in ZBrush, that's probably right up your alley. Check it out. Alright, we are definitely lacking in color on our neck. So Let's get some more down here. Those eyes. Kind of creeping me out now. Alright, don't want to overdo too much of this, which is why my RGB intensity is so low. It's really easy to like just overpaint stuff and start to get feel like really just stuck on and awkward. Like if I turn this up really high, it's really easy to just like get this nice hard, or not nice in this case, but this hard like cutoff between your colors. Whereas if you lower this quite a bit more and very gently paint, you can ever so slightly start to darken an area or something like that. So pretty subtle difference between the cutoff of the colors. So something like that is very important. Don't want to overpaint too much. And that's a little bit too much there. Just wanted to darken it a little bit. All right, let's merge our head and jaw together here. Not technically, the geometry is not merged technically, but the subtools are. And that helps me in just being able to sculpt on all of this at once a lot more easily. But of course it will get a little bit more laggy. A little bit of a trade-off, but that's okay. Alright. I just want to get a little bit more visually interesting around here. There's just like kind of these random shapes happening in the jaw. I think they look cool, they just don't make too much sense anatomically, but maybe if we can get some of them in there, it'll work. And like I said, I don't want to do a ton with this character's hair. But maybe we could do a little bit more. Our jaw was looking a bit too thick, I thought, so we'll just decrease that a little bit. All right, she's looking pretty cool. Let's see. What else do we want to do to this gal? Or do we want to move on to something new? Something else? Got a bit of time left. I say we take a break on her for just a moment because I want to show you guys a quick demonstration since I've been mentioning my new course. Yeah, so we'll do that real quick. Let me hide this. And you can go hang out in that corner for a little bit. There you go, Baba Yaga style. All right, let's grab this. And a quick little refresh because that list is getting a little bit too long. All right, so I've been mentioning my course, the Appeal Academy, more than a couple times tonight, just because I recently relaunched or reopened registration for the course. So I thought it would be cool to demonstrate a couple things from the course. I don't think we're going to have a lot of time to go through a ton of information, but I thought it would be cool if you guys were around. I'm not sure if any of you were around for... it was a while ago, so I probably can't find the video too quickly. But essentially what I did was I went through... Here he is. Boom. I found that a lot more easily than I thought it would. So essentially what I did was I went through my entire sculpting process, starting, so using this Prince of the Forest character, showing the blockout stage, into kind of refinement, into secondary forms, into more and more detail and refinement from there, into adding PolyPaint, doing posing, all that good stuff, all the way up into the finished character. So I went through a ton of different information in this video, and I'm going to post a link to this because we're going to do something similar today. But if you are interested in my sculpting process and how I would go about creating something like this deer character, like this Prince of the Forest, I would definitely recommend checking out this video. So, like I said, ton of information in there. There's a link. But what we are going to do, something similar with my Android 18 character here. So let me load in the blockout that I did for this character. Give me a second here to find that. There we go. Okay, so there are two different files that we are going to look at here. And we'll start with this one. So this character over here, this Android 17 character, started from this monstrosity of sorts. Kind of a character maquette, you could call it. I just call it a blockout. Essentially, the basic idea of a blockout is to focus on fundamentals. But we can't really talk about blockout too much unless we take a step backwards into fundamentals. And that's what my course, The Appeal Academy, really focuses on, is sculpting appealing characters from the standpoint and mindset of focusing on fundamentals. And there's a lot of information that we could go into about fundamentals, more so than I could cover in an hour. So there were two that I thought would be really cool to focus on, that you could consider maybe like little art hacks almost to just make a shape more visually interesting immediately, more appealing. So Mr. Sanson was saying, what's the secret to making my characters more appealing? Well, here's a couple real quick here for you. So, like I said, there are a lot of fundamentals that go into making appealing shapes. It's not just about appealing characters, it's about creating appealing shapes, the parts of your character. So let's just use these legs down here as our starting point. And what I'll do is I will split them up so that we have this basic shape over here and this one over here. And let's grab the upper leg too. So I will have, just to make sure I got everything in the right spot, I got my upper leg and my lower leg. So we'll try to kind of cover this really basically as quick as I can. So the first fundamental idea that we are going to look at is called taper, or thick to thin, or another way to think of it is to try to avoid parallels in a shape. So as you can see in our leg, it's not perfectly parallel, but a lot of the shape here, a lot of the silhouette is very parallel, and thus that makes the shape feel very boring. You can see over here in all my limbs and all parts of my character, it avoids parallels at every single turn. So that is something that is very important. So I'm going to show you how we can do that really quick. So I just have this little piece of geometry, this leg, and even from the profile, I've started to get a little bit of that taper in there already. But let's just start by smoothing out the bottom so that starts to taper it a bit more. And I'll just use a move brush really quick up here to widen that out. So we are now going from a thick shape down into a thin shape. And now it is immediately more visually interesting than this one over here. And down here with this upper leg, we can do the same thing. Maybe we got a little bit of a thicker shape up here, a little bit more narrow towards here. And we are 3D artists, so we want to rotate around and think about how a shape is going to taper from the profile as well. So we're starting to get a little bit more thick into a little bit more of a thin shape. And I'll just combine these really quick so that we have two of them. So that is the first fundamental, let's say. It's not the first fundamental, but it's the first thing that I wanted to look at. I wanted to look at things that were maybe like a little bit more unique that a lot of you have a good chance of not ever heard of before. So that was one. And then another thing that works really well in combination with this is the idea of focusing on making your shapes more interesting by breaking up symmetry in the individual shape. And this fundamental is often referred to as straights and curves, or a really good way that I like to think of it is having one side of your shape being more visually interesting than the other. So if we look at our shape right now, if we look at this, yes, we have avoided parallel lines. We're no longer having parallel shapes in the silhouette, but they're still doing the exact same thing on both sides of the shape. So what do we need to do? We need to make one side a little bit more visually interesting. So one way we can do that is by making one side a little bit more straight and another side maybe a little bit more curved. So that's why it's often referred to as straights and curves. So I am going to make that inner edge just a little bit more straight and this outer side just a little bit more curved. And as you can see, we are already, just by doing a couple strokes here with our move brush, starting to get a more visually interesting shape. From the profile, I will do the exact same thing. I'll have the front of the shape be a little bit more curved. I'll have the back of the shape be a little bit more straight, a little bit more boring. And then down here in the lower leg, I'm actually going to do the opposite. I'll have the front be a little bit more straight and the back just be a little bit more curved. So just like that, we have gone from a boring parallel leg over here on the left side into a cool tapered shape that has some unique asymmetries in it that are that ends up creating shapes that are much more visually interesting. And then, from there, we could obviously combine these two meshes and, start to sculpt in our knee, whatever we want to do from here. Or if we want to continue to refine that shape, we can just lower the poly count. I mean, there's a lot of different things that we can do here to kind of take this to the next step. But those were the two kind of big, like quick little fundamental changes that I thought would be pretty interesting for you guys. And it looks like the Z remesh is going to take a little bit too long. Hopefully we don't crash. There we go. All right, so this was stage one of my character block out. Here's a little bit further in the block out process for my character. This Android 18 character over here. Still very simple, very rudimentary, but you can see that down here in the legs, there's a lot more focus on creating stuff, creating shapes that are tapered, as well as having a fundamental of a straight on one side and a more interesting shape on the other side. So some quick little changes here and there, and stuff starts to get more visually interesting a lot more quicker. I don't want to talk too much more about like block out and stuff, just because I have that other video that I posted and shared for you guys, so I hope that you guys find that helpful. But let's look at the next step of the process here, once that quick save is done. I'm actually going to turn off quick save because we are going to have lots of files loaded in here, and that'll start to get bogged down really quick. Jay the Chow says, how do I move multiple poly groups at once? So, here you go, Jay. I have a bunch of different poly groups here in this character's arms. I'll even auto groups it so I have even more. What you can do is Control-Shift-Click. Hold Control-Shift, click your poly group that you want. So I want this red poly group, and let's say I want this yellow poly group for whatever reason. Doesn't really matter. Control-Click, hold the Control key, click, that masks everything. Control-Shift-Click to unhide everything. And now you have just those two selected, and you can move them with your transpose line, your 3D gizmo, whatever you like to use. The world is your oyster. But masking is probably the easiest way to go about that. All right, let's load in a refinement stage. So this is a little bit further in the process. As you can tell, things have, definitely progressed from our blockout into a little bit more anatomical form, a lot more visually interesting. There's not really a ton to say about this part of the stage other than focusing on your reference, as well as a couple other things that I cover in the course that are more so some of the trade secrets that I'll hold close. And you guys, if you are interested, for those that are, you can check out the course over on the website. JFO, have you used the multiple selection with the gizmo? Yes, I have. That also works. So that's not for polygroups, that is for multiple subtools. What I like to use typically is in the Z plugin menu, T-pose mesh. That'll throw everything that is visible into transpose master, and you can move or edit or sculpt on multiple things at once. But if you're just trying to move geometry, you can, so I could make a new folder here. Sure, untitled folder. There's a lot of different ways to go about this, but we'll just throw in a couple pieces of geometry into this folder. Click on our 3D gizmo, make sure that's on. Click on the gear, and just click on transpose set. And you can see that we can move all those parts and pieces around at once. So that is using the transpose all selected subtools, or pizza box icon, as it is more commonly known in the 3D gizmo, but you can also do it with folders. A lot of different options there in terms of moving multiple subtools, multiple polygroups, a lot of different stuff. Cool. So let's go on to the next stage. I kind of want to go through this a little bit more quickly so we can get back to our gal here. And some of the materials are messed up here. So let me do a quick little fill fix. All right, so there's definitely some changes that have occurred between this current face and the face over here on the right, the final version. I would say that the most important thing that I like to think about while working on my face in the beginning is think of it like you're just doing construction. It doesn't have to be pretty, and you don't... You have to separate it kind of into stages, is how I like to think about it. The first stage is the construction stage, where I'm just trying to get all the parts and pieces in there in the relative right place. And this is the same exact idea with blockout. You just want to get some geometry in there, get some parts and pieces on the canvas. The last thing you want is a blank page staring back at you. So you can't really start working on proportions until you have the stuff in there to reference against itself. That's what proportions are. So that's kind of the first stage of working on your character's face, getting all the parts and pieces in there, and then you can start to focus a little bit more on accuracy, let's say. Real quick here. Let's see. I'll show just a couple more, 2 or 3 more real fast, just so you guys can see the full kind of process here for that character. And the materials are screwed up again, so not sure what's going on there. So during this stage, just creating accessories and clothing. It kind of depends on the character. If the clothing or accessories that the character has with it are a huge part of the character's silhouette, then I will absolutely start creating those earlier on. I try to do as much as I can early on in the kind of like earlier stages of blockout if I can. So that includes stuff like clothing, if your character has like something that they're holding, a weapon, a book, whatever. So I try to get a lot of that in the early stages, and then I have something to build off of later on. And I've actually shown off a lot of techniques for extruding clothing on the channel, so I don't think we'll do that, but more so I just wanted to kind of show off the idea of, when you're creating your clothing here at this early stage, you can still see that this is just a cylinder. It's a cylinder that I've subdivided, and it's got a hole in it. Like, it's not a complicated shape, but that's how all things start. Blockout, refinement, and then polish. And the same thing is true with a character's pose. and I'm actually loading in a little bit more of a finished version of the pose, but that's okay. So we got our little stripper pole here, but I like to do. I'll show you why I have this here in just a moment. But essentially with posing, I treat it the same way as anything else. I try to just get the basic, most basic pulls and turns and twists and everything else for my pose, and then I start to refine it a little bit more from there. There's some live booleans on here as well, so stuff's a little bit weird, but I don't want to leave that on because it'll get laggy. The pole here in the center of the character is just to find the character's center point, where they are, where their center of gravity is, and I just find that helpful when I am posing to help figure out the balance of my character a little bit more. It's really easy to have your character feel like they are about to fall over when you're in that posing stage. I try to keep the character feeling on balance even in the neutral stage. I find that it's a lot more helpful when you're moving forward into posing later on. And then of course the final version, which is the one that I have over here in the corner, where everything is combined and polished and gone through all the stages of development from block out to final pass here. We got our little cute Krillin doll down here. Nothing too crazy. I didn't spend a ton of time on him, but yeah, that's kind of the whole quick rundown on the gal. But I just wanted to go through that. More so, I wanted to go through that those ideas with the fundamentals earlier on, because I think a lot of that stuff is really useful, and again, it's kind of like the huge, kind of the overarching focus or theme of the entire course. So if fundamentals are something that you are interested in, or sculpting appealing characters, unlike this old hag here, then go check it out. It's appeal.academy. I'll shout it out this one last time. You can go check it out. Alright, cool. Let's continue sculpting on our old hag, because we got some more time to play around. I'm going to start sharpening up certain areas just a little bit. Ooh, Sculptress Pro. Oh, you know what? Let's leave Sculptress Pro off for a little bit, because I think I have enough resolution in most of these areas for what I want to do for sharpening up some of these shapes. And I think Sculptress Pro is just gonna kind of lag us a little bit more than what we want right now. I'm just trying to build in a little bit of some extra shapes in a couple areas. Maybe Sculptress Pro would be nice for some of this stuff. One thing that I found that Sculptress Pro is amazing at is creating seams for clothing. Does an awesome job at that kind of thing. And I don't know why I didn't think of that before, but I use it for it all the time now on a lot of stuff. Very cool. And very easy to do as well. She's got some wonkiness going on with her nose that I would like to fix. Some harder shapes than what I would like. Maybe we can give her a nice little wart on her nose as well. It'd be pretty cool. We'll do that in a minute after I clean this up. Try to get some heavier bags under here. What is better, to sculpt the character nude or sculpt them in clothing? Well, I guess it kind of depends on what your purposes are for the character. So if it's if you're just practicing, I would say sculpt everything, right? The more you do, the more practice you're gonna get. If it's something for production where the character is going to have multiple outfits in, let's say, a video game, like, then you'd obviously want to do the character's body and everything for that. If it's, you know, just a sculpt and maybe you're just going to like 3D print it later, then you don't really need the body because, you know, you could hide pretty much everything under there because you're going to have to fill in everything for 3D printing. So the body doesn't technically exist when you would go to 3D print that. It'd be pretty silly to sculpt that. But, you know, I mean, it's up to you at the end of the day, I guess. If you don't need it, don't sculpt it. It's not really about what's better, it's about just like what you need and what you're trying to accomplish. Alright. Let's get one little wart over here. Let's turn Sculptress Pro back on and try that again. Always gotta have a nose wart. It's all about the nose wart. It's what the beauty magazines won't tell you. Keep doing that. I'm trying to get a little heavier here in the eyes, especially over on this side. This is more the more so the droopy one of the two. See what a clean line you get from Sculptress Pro like that? Just like carves in exactly the resolution that you need there. It's pretty awesome. Big fan of the Sculptress Pro. I would not normally ever sculpt my eyes like this directly on the character, but this was kind of an exercise in what is possible with Sculptress Pro. You can get away with a lot. I prefer to have a lot more control over my eyes and the shapes that I am creating there. So this is fine for, you know, a doodle or something quick, but like I said, I would typically do those as a separate object and then merge them in later on. Can I put the Android 18 wig onto the hag? Oh my gosh. Let's see. Let me see. I love how you call it a wig as well. Yes, I think so. I think we can androidify her. Get her looking real sexy. Maybe we can give her the Krillin doll as well. How many polys is that? Got a lot of stuff loaded in right now, so this might take a minute. But it's a great idea, so we're going to do it. Oh, perfect. It's at the right size and everything. Oof. Time to get a haircut. Oh no. So laggy. Here, hold on. Oh no! It crashed. Crashed without a warning. I kind of saw that coming. Just had a couple too many things loaded in there. Should be fine though. We can just roll back. I don't think we really lost anything important. You mean, is it better to sculpt them nude and then clothe them, or sculpt them in clothing? Like I said, it depends on exactly what I said before. My statement is exactly the same, I think. Neither one is not better than the other. It's totally dependent on what you're doing and what the purpose of the character is for. She's definitely high. Maybe. Oh man. Is this not gonna load? Oh, there we go. I was gonna say that would be sad. Let's get rid of the extra stuff so that that doesn't happen again. All right, and then we need the gal. Grab her hair. I am going to get rid of some of the polygons just because we don't need all of them. We don't need to go that extreme. All right. Append that back. Grab our beautiful locks of hair. All right, it'll be much easier now. Oh yeah. I can already tell that this is gonna be great. Oh, hell yes. Wow. Already looking spicy. Wow, that's something. I'm all about this. Just gotta work on placing that a little bit better. I like it. I think she looks pretty good. I don't think she's ever looked this fabulous before. She's a new woman. Oh, we lost some of our eye stuff that we were doing, but that's okay. We can redo that. That won't take too long. I am all about this. This is the best idea we've had in a while. Really frames her face and makes her eyes pop, yes. That's exactly what she wants to hear. So, you know, option A, you know, old lady. I mean, this hairstyle, it's out of style. There's no other way to say it. But this, fierce is how I would describe it. Something. There's something about Baba Yaga. The new rom-com of the summer. Alright, let's get back in on our eyes and get those bags back in. Those hag bags. Oh, we lost our nose wart as well. Turn off Sculptress for a minute. Try to get some of that shape back in. We lost just a few things. Not like a ton, but enough to be annoying. I mean, this is my new waifu right here. Alright. I think I'm probably just going to keep this hair on her forever now. Like, this is her hair. Honestly, I should put the other hair on Android 18. See how that looks. I don't really think it would fit her her head shape that I have right now, though, unfortunately. Alright, just a little bit more here on the eyes. Yum! There are people joining in that have never seen like someone model a character in their entire life, and they're just like, what am I looking at? This is the power of ZBrush. With great what is it? With great power comes great responsibility. I feel like I have wielded, or maybe miswielded that power, that responsibility. Just trying to get a little bit more shape here under the eyes like we had before. A little bit better. There are a couple more areas that we can do some similar stuff. So originally I was kind of using, I don't have the concept loaded in anymore. Chris, what's going on? Welcome. Welcome to the catastrophe. So I was originally using this concept as a reference of like an idea to start. I really liked the way that the mouth like caved in and felt very skeletal, so I was kind of just playing around with that. We have obviously diverted from that just a little bit, but here we can turn on the granny hair back on for a little bit. Maybe play around with inflating this. It feels a little thin. Let's see. Just to get a little more volume in there. It feels much better. And get our wart back. All right. All right, quick save is set up. All right, so I wanted to blend some of this form around the nose a little bit more, because it transitioned really, just like really steep, and it looked pretty awkward, I thought. We didn't lose a ton though, so I don't think we missed out on too much. So things are getting a little bit messy. Typically what I'll do is I will Z-remesh to start controlling my form a little bit better. What you can actually do with the Sculptress Pro mode though is just kind of manually go through with your smooth brush and start kind of lowering the resolution of certain areas to start cleaning those up. So that's one really cool thing that you can do. And you don't have to worry about, you know, am I going to remesh too low and mess up one area? Because you can kind of control where all that's happening at individually, which is pretty sweet. So I don't think I'm going to start, you know, using Sculptress Pro all the time, but it's probably something that I'll consider using a lot more frequently. I'm pretty stuck in my ways. I do think that it's a very fast tool though, and I've enjoyed my time with it immensely. Some grody eyes. Alright, what else do we want to do to this gal other than change your hairstyle a little bit more? Let's see. Just get a couple quick strokes here for a little bit of texture. Oop. Pretty low res, so it's going to be a little voxelated, pixelated, voxelized. It's not going to look super great, but just to get a couple quick strokes in here so it's not perfectly flat, which feels pretty awkward. Just a quick clay brush stroke here or there. Nothing too crazy. So when I am sculpting hair, I do like using this brush a lot. This is just my Follygon clay brush. You can get a very similar result with some of the clay brushes that are by default in ZBrush, so play around with those. But this is how I would probably, you know, start something, just with some quick sketching to get an idea of the flow and direction of the hair. Then obviously we need to refine quite a bit more from here. This is just some quick little strokes, and we really just have 3 kind of large segments for our hair right now, so it's not like it's super detailed or anything. Alright, let's see. I don't think Sculptress Pro can combine geometry, which is actually kind of nice. I don't think that it does. Yeah, it does not. So with Dynamesh, you know, you would actually merge this geometry together just where it's touching, which is, I really like that aspect of Dynamesh, but I'm glad that Sculptress Pro does not do that, as that would probably be pretty annoying. Let's see if we can do a quick Dynamesh here. A little bit lower. There we go. I'm just kind of simplifying the shape that we have. Recombining all this geo here. Sculptress Pro helping us out. And let's see. I really like using the snakehook brush with Sculptress Pro. Ooh, without RGB. Find that you can get some nice quick results with that. But I like the way that that is kind of framing the character now. If anything, I might consider chopping off like the bottom portion of that. I don't think it's too distracting from the face, but maybe we can do some more stuff here. Chris says, just hanging out, what are you making? Well, we were playing around with Sculptress Pro today, and we just got done doing a demonstration on a couple things for fundamentals and some stuff with this character over here. But now we're just kind of working on this like old hag Baba Yaga style female character. Oh, you know what? Yeah, I know what we can do. Let me see. I'm gonna re-import the concept really fast here. 'Cause I don't know why it got. I guess after a crash, it didn't stay in. So. Let's, where is, let me fix that. There we go. By default, the spotlight tool will hide black, which is very nice if you are trying to get it to do that, but in that instance I was not. So, I was kind of using that as a idea generator earlier on when I was playing around with some of the shapes here. This concept, but we can poly model our little corncob pipe. I think that would be a cool next thing to do, because we don't play with poly modeling tools enough here, and I love using ZModeler. ZModeler is an awesome tool. For those that are unfamiliar with ZModeler, it is the poly modeling tool in ZBrush. And let's get our old hairstyle back on for a little bit here. Alright, so it's pretty much just 2 cylinders. Let's talk about fundamentals while we do this, because this will be an exercise in those 2 areas that we looked at. So the one being taper, and the other one being interesting and less interesting, or straights and curves, however you want to think about it. So let's grab a cylinder. The way I like to create cylinders is I will duplicate a piece of geometry, scroll down to initialize, and set these numbers to 212 and click on Q cylinder Y, or quick cylinder Y. So that will create a really low poly cylinder. And what is it? 8-sided? Yeah. 2, 4, 6, 8. Yes, 8-sided shape, which is typically pretty good for rounding out later on once we smooth this. So by default, if we press the D key, that'll add a dynamic subdivision level, but because we don't have any creases set up, it looks pretty awkward. So what we can do is go to Crease. This is under Tool Geometry, and Crease, just click on Crease by default with the default settings of 45. It should do exactly what we want here, and it looks like it did a pretty good job. So let's get this out here. I'm just going to rotate this straight ahead. So typically when I'm poly modeling, I will keep everything on a symmetrical axis, just because it's a lot easier to work with. And then later on, I will start making changes to that. So let's see, let's look at our concept. So the pipe goes from a little bit more thin to a little bit more thick towards the outside. So we'll just elongate our pipe. We also need to make it a little more narrow in general, because this thing's just way too big. She can never fit in her mouth there. But the scale is more like a pipe than a, well, this is a pipe. That was more like a PVC pipe of some kind. Alright, so that should work. We'll elongate it out. And then here we go, let's do some taper. So that's what we want to focus on, thick to thin. So let's increase the scale. And now we're no longer super parallel and boring. And we can do the same thing over here. We'll shrink it a bit more. I think that looks pretty good. Alright, so we need another cylinder. So let me grab a couple undos here. Beautiful. And I'll just kind of reposition this cylinder right here. This one's a bit larger. And this one also has some taper in it. It goes from thick to thin from top to bottom. So we'll kind of do the same thing. So thick, down to thin. And it looks like there's some cheating going on here in 2D. So that kind of connects for the cylinder at the bottom, which doesn't do us any favors. Let's see if we can maybe get that to work a little bit closer. Might end up going a bit more thin here, or maybe just a bit more narrow on the profile. Just gotta break a couple things, no worries. We'll do that, that'll work. Ah yes, what a beautiful lady, thank you. She's gorgeous. We have both of our hairstyles turned on here. So I haven't really decided what hairstyle I like more. You know, this is a very classic look, but this one's very, very kind of new age. You know, I like this, personally. I would like to try Marvelous, but it's so expensive. Yeah, Marvelous is a pretty cool software. I haven't played around with it too much, but for most of the stuff that I do, I hand sculpt everything, so I don't really need a lot of clothing simulation or fabric simulation. The guy from Tales from the Crypt. Is that the Crypt Keeper that you're thinking of? I don't know if that is the Crypt Keeper or not. But yes, in a way, it does. Oscar, what's up? Do you think it's necessary using Substance Designer or Marvelous to create more accurate designs? I guess it depends what you're trying to create. With those tools, you know, they can simulate, like, so for Marvelous, you can simulate clothing. We were just talking about Marvelous. You can simulate a lot of different fabrics in it. You know, you can simulate, you know, certain, like, you can control a lot of minutia, right? Like thickness of fabric, everything. But with hand sculpted stuff, for like stylized stuff, you probably can't really simulate a ton of great stylized articles of clothing, or like, let's say, a stylized fold in a very specific way. So for something like that, it's not really like a good fit, but I I guess, like more accurate to real world. I don't think it's necessary. No, absolutely not. People have been sculpting fabric out of stone forever, and it looks fantastic. It looks amazing. Look at some great classical sculpture, and you'll find a ton of good examples of it. So no, I don't think it's necessary. Is it hard? Yeah, it's really hard. So you better be good at it. But no, it's not. It's not necessary at all, I don't think. Banana Name TV. I believe I said that close enough. So welcome. Welcome and good night. She is gorgeous. Thank you. Thank you. All right, let's grab a couple colors from our corn cob. And we can start working on some secondary shapes as well. So we got our pipe, we got the basic shape here, but let's grab our Z modeler brush, do a split operation, and hollow this puppy out. It looks like it's pretty thin, so we'll go somewhere about there, and just Q-mesh those polys in. But unfortunately, we're gonna get that junk happening just because the Q-mesh goes directly down, so I will need to scale that in. And I don't need it to go all the way to the bottom, just kind of close enough. We'll be close enough here. Let's make this a little bit less tall because it feels a little bit much. And yeah, something like that. And then we can like put some embers or something in there. Here, let's see. A beautiful, beautiful hair. I cannot get over it. Room for that in a moment. It's kind of just lazily held in the mouth there. Kind of like that feel. Let's make sure that extends all the way into the mouth. Boom! Beautiful. Not a great interaction, but it works. Is it possible to make a character ready for animation only with ZBrush? Yes, but I would not recommend it. It is not a really great workflow that I would even entertain for a moment. The retopology tools in ZBrush are, you know, not the best. It's a sculpting tool. It's a sculpting program. It just so happens to have some poly modeling tools and some other stuff that have been added more recently that make it, you know, starting to get more towards a entire 3D package. It's definitely not there yet, but it's getting closer. But, you know, primarily the focus of ZBrush, I think, is always going to be on the sculpting tool set. And you know what makes every shape better? Bevels. Oh, maybe not. Keeps beveling the wrong direction. That's annoying. What the heck? There we go. So it has something to do with like how close that edge is. I don't know exactly what controls it, but I put in a temporary slice through my mesh so that it would bevel the edge in the correct direction. So up here it'll work fine because of how close that edge is. So that worked. do some cool creases. And now when we smooth that shape, it'll hold those edges nice and tight. We'll do the same thing down here. Got some nice and tight edges, and the geometry is looking a bit more clean. A bit more visually interesting. Oof. You are not, though. I mean, you're looking visually interesting. You're just not looking clean. Not in the way that I normally sculpt, but that's okay. I like her all the same. All right, let's put like some embers or something in here. Let's see. What do we got? What do we got going on here? Ooh, you know what? We could sculpt some smoke. Ooh, doesn't that sound fun? Any kind of like smoke or water, anything like that. It's always kind of annoying. Real tough. Just trying to get some quick little things in here real fast. And then quick little Dynamesh. Whoa, not what we wanted. There we go. And we could apply, there's a bunch of cool materials that we can play around with, but there is one in particular, if I can find it. Where is it? I'm looking for the Jellybean material. I don't know. If we can't find it, it's not a big deal. We can just use something else real fast, but there is this material that you can play around with. It's not the gel shader, that's not it. It's called like Jellybean or something. It doesn't matter, I don't see it anywhere. Here, what did I have there? I just had like some kind of reflective something, another. I don't really like that. I don't like most of the materials in here, but there are a few that I gravitate towards. It doesn't really matter. Oof. That's a fun one. Where is it? I don't know. There it is. Jellybean. Alright, so the Jellybean material is really cool because what you can do with it in your material modifiers is you can up the ambient quite a lot. Get some really cool effects with it. I'll use it for all sorts of stuff. Neat. Well, that's what we did. We got some bubbles now. All right. Let's see here. How did you shirk your slice like that? I don't know what shirk means. So, like get rid of really quick? Is that what you mean? Like how did I get rid of it? So what I did was I put a slice through this piece of geometry because the bevel wasn't going in the proper direction. So what I did was I ran a quick, let me change my material. Like over here. If I wanted to bevel this edge and it wasn't going the direction that I wanted it to, so like bevel, edge loop, and it's probably not going to do it, so bevel. See how it's going this way? I want it to go around the cylinder this way. So what you could do is you could add in an edge loop here, but to insert an edge loop, you have to insert it at the middle of the geometry. So what I did was I held Control and Shift, did a slice curve. So Control Shift, select the slice curve brush, and then hold Control Shift and click and drag to draw out a slice, which adds in an edge loop, technically. And I essentially just added that in temporarily so that I could bevel this in the proper direction, but it's not close enough. So here, do it one more time. Boop, right about there. Now it should bevel the way I want it to, but it's not wanting to do it. There's actually another way we can do this, but it's being, there we go. So I got it to go that way. Now it's beveled the way I want. And now I just want to delete these because they're just kind of in the way. So hover over an edge with the Z modeler brush, what we were just using. Spacebar, delete, edge loop complete, delete, delete, gone forever. Boom. No more slice. Easy peasy. All right, we got our bubble blowing gal here. Let's fix that material. Now that I know where the Jellybean is, down here. Shrink. Oh, shrink. How did you shrink your slice? How did I shrink my slice? I'm not sure. What did I do? I don't know what I did to shrink my... I don't know what you're talking about, actually. For which part? When I was working on the pipe? When you're working with the slice curve brush, you can just click and drag it out, or hold the space bar to move it around if you want. And there's a lot of different options there. Whoa, what the heck? That was weird. We got like a little hole in our nose. That's actually the first time that's happened with Sculptress Pro mode for me. Maybe it has something to do with the resolution there. Not sure. But I would say all in all, I'm very happy with how this turned out for some quick sculpting. Playing around with Sculptress Pro was a lot of fun. I think this is maybe like my third time playing around with Sculptress Pro. Probably like my second serious time, like actually sculpting something. More so the first time just kind of playing around, seeing how it worked. Yeah, for sure my second time. The other one's over on my YouTube channel pretty recently. But yeah, really cool tool. I would love to incorporate it into my workflow more. But I'll probably more so stick with my, what I know and love with Dynamesh and ZRemesh and all that. A lot of benefits to all those tools, but Sculptress Pro has their own benefits as well. I am a big fan. But we are nearly out of time, so please throw in any last minute questions or anything in chat now. I'll answer them before we go. I did a slice curve and all of a sudden your slice was smaller. I don't know, maybe I'm seeing things. Maybe, I don't know. The only operations that you can do when drawing out a slice, so click and drag to like move your slice around, right? You can hold shift to like snap it at every 5 degrees. If you press the Alt key, you'll add in a Bezier kind of curve here. And if you double tap Alt, it will do a hard angle turn. That's about it. There's not really too much other than that. And then holding the spacebar allows you to kind of freely move that around as well. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe you're seeing things, like you said. I really don't know. There's no secret quick operation to like change the scale that I know of. Maybe there is and I pressed it on accident. If anybody else knows. Trying to just get a little bit more up in here. And a little back face moving. Thicken some of that up. Awesome. Just use insert edge loop in ZModeler. Yes, absolutely, you can use that. The reason I didn't use that though was because I'd have to put it at the middle of the pipe and then slide it all the way down, and that was too many operations. So I lazily added one in with a quick little slice. It's very useful for some quick edge loops where you wouldn't necessarily always be able to get an edge loop. A lot of good stuff in the ZModeler tool though, in general. All right, cool. Yeah, if you're using the slice curve brush, I've literally never used those options, Steven. Let's see. I don't remember. What is it? Control Shift and right click. Here. No, wait, is that what it is? I thought it was like, oh, I thought it was Control Shift Space. Is this what you're talking about? This is what I'm thinking of. Maybe not. I've literally never used these options. I don't know if that's what you're talking about for the slice brush. But they are there. B radius, I don't even know what these do. I assume the poly group doesn't let it create a poly group if you toggle that. It's for clip brushes, it looks like. And the B radius defines how much will be clipped when a clip brush is used. Interesting, yeah. It's not something that I ever really play around with. Or use the bevel edge function. That's actually what we were using there. Let's see. The insert edge operation. So I was using, so Jay there was talking about insert edge loop, I believe. But let's see. You are just talking about insert edge, I believe. Let's see. So it's called a poly loop, right? In ZBrush. That's how we refer to it. Insert poly loops. Maybe you're talking about a different operation. Oh, gotcha. Inset, yeah. That's where the misunderstanding occurred. Yeah, it was very, very fun sculpt. Good time playing around with Sculptress Pro, like I said. But I believe we are just about out of time, so here at the end, I'll just really quickly again shout out my new course, I should say, not the new course. My new course over on appeal.academy if you guys want to check it out. Not just a course, but also a mentorship on how to create stylized and appealing characters like this beautiful old lady. Look at that haircut. I don't remember who said throw Android 18's hair on the Heg character, but shout out to you. Thank you. Best idea we've had in a long, long time. Again, appeal.academy. And if you guys want to check out more of my stuff, I'm Follygon. You can just search on the Google and just type in Follygon and you'll find my YouTube channel and all my other stuff. All right, cool. We out of time, so I gotta bounce. But thank you all for coming and hanging out tonight. I'll be streaming not this Tuesday, but the Tuesday after, which is the 23rd. So I'll be doing some similar stuff here not next Tuesday, in 2 weeks. Same time, which is 3 p.m. PST. But until then, you guys have a fantastic rest of your day. And make sure you stick around for the next streamer, which is going to be in about an hour. But I don't have the schedule pulled up, unfortunately, so I don't know who that's going to be. All right. I'll see you later. JFO. Smartest. Chris. Awesome. Thank you guys. You guys have a great night. See you, Raga. Peace out.